and then I'm going to hide this. I'll put it back up at the end, I guess. Y'all got it? All right. Now we're going to keep going. All right.
Thank you.
No problem. So, some of the meetups that we support, in addition to this meetup, is the Orlando PHP meetup, Orlando Android Developers Group, the Project Code Experience, and Orlando Startup Demos. If you're not a part of those and you're interested, please join. But so that's some of what we do for the Orlando developer community. We not only run this meetup and that Slack, but we support other groups to hopefully bring you the speakers and information you want. So I want to give a shout out to PowerDMS for hosting us here. Thank you, PowerDMS. And to our community sponsors who help us pay for things like the pizza and other things like that. Well, Blue Wave and Fat Merchant, thank you. And since while we're at it, PowerDMS, you want to tell anybody about any job openings or anything, or are we?
I was not.
I was not prepared?
Yeah, I was not.
I know there's always openings, so check them out.
Yes, actually, there's some. Eventually, it'll scroll by on the screen that's above you. I don't know when though, but it will show the careers.
Raised beef.
Okay.
Raised beef. We are looking for raised beef.
Yeah. Any of you qualified to be raised beef? Raised beef? No?
With red wine?
Need a career change? All right. So speaking is on October 25th. And our next ODevs meetup, I haven't announced it officially on the meetup site yet, but it will be November 4th. Already got speakers, one person coming in from out of town. I'll probably be the other speaker, but it should be a good one. So November 4th, and that'll be announced very shortly. We are also helping out this NASA Space Apps hackathon. If you're interested in joining this hackathon, it's at hackflorida.space. I don't know if is anybody here already involved in this that can tell us a little bit more about it? Yep? Yeah. Are you participating or are you helping organize it?
I'm helping organize it.
Okay. You want to tell them anything else about it real quick?
Well,
you can come up, you can grab the mic. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Are you working right now?
well,
Yeah.
Take a break.
well, we got the NASA Hackathon, GDG, which is a Google Development Group, is helping sponsor this hackathon. We're going to have it this weekend coming up. And if you go there, you can sign up, and we're going to have some workshops too, Google Cloud, and things of that nature. There's going to be a lot of people in there, so not much I can of that. But I invite you everybody to go to DevFest too.
Cool. And DevFest, yeah. When is DevFest?
That's November 16th.
November 16th. All right. So those events, if you're interested. I have some outside of here, I run some other events and stuff. I'm running a conference here in February called Flashback Conference, so you can check it out at flashback.dev. It's 2 days, one-track conference. I just pushed live my keynote speakers. If you know, so this is all front-end development, and I've got Kyle Simpson and Estelle Weil, who are great speakers. I don't know if any of you have heard of them, but both really well known in the front-end development community and JavaScript community. So if you're interested in front-end development, I've got that conference running. I also run a bunch of free online meetups, so kind of related to the topic today. If you want to go further about networking as a developer, so I've got Wesley Faulkner, who's from MongoDB, and he's going to be talking live on October 31st. That's at noon. It's just online, so it's like a lunch and learn. So just go to cfe.dev and you can sign up for that. I just pushed that one live too. All right. So we're gonna actually, real quick before Joey goes on, I've got a few t-shirts, so I figure I might as well give them out before we start. So I recently, some of you know, recently switched jobs, and I joined a company named StackBit, and so I went and grabbed some swag. All I've got is 3 t-shirts, so if you know, we've got a big group here, but I'm just gonna call out the size, and the first person I see gets. All right, so medium. Anybody want medium? Wow, that hand went up fast. All right. So, okay, this one I know I was told is the most comfortable, but it's a small. Small. Oh, there we go. Ooh. And then I got one more that is a large. Large. Yeah. All right. I'll try and get more next time, but I only had a few this time. All right. So now, Joey,
Yeah.
you're up.
Awesome.
Yeah. What do you got? HTML? Yeah.
Sir. Hello, everyone. I'm Joey. I'm one of our recruiters over at Blue Wave. I'm one of the sponsors of the event tonight. Let's see if I can get this going. Cool. Sorry, can I go quicker here? We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing with different personas in an organization. So kind of the differences, things you should emphasize when interviewing with different types of people, whether that's a recruiter, a technical manager, or someone on senior leadership when you are applying and working through the process with new positions. So let's go ahead and jump into it. It's definitely a pretty important thing to at least recognize and be cognizant of when you are interviewing a process. There's normally going to be multiple steps, multiple people you're going to be speaking to, and different things you need to emphasize in your background when you're talking to each of these different types of people. They're all screening for different things, they're all qualifying you on different skill sets, and there's definitely things you can do as a candidate or interviewer when looking for a new job to stand out among each of those people consistently. HR managers, recruiters, technical managers, CEOs, I mean, it seems a little obvious, but it's something to be definitely aware of, that they're all going to be screening for different things, whether it's your actual technical skills, your personality, or just sort of your ideas on long-term growth for the company. Generally, the first step, you are talking to HR managers and recruiters. So whether that is an internal HR or corporate recruiter, that's generally going to be the first step, first interview, whether it's phone, in person, high-level conversations about your work experience, projects you've worked on, technical requirements based on the job description and sort of what they're looking to bring in talent-wise, and just a good overview of the organization. A couple key things to emphasize: the difference between internal HR and corporate recruiters to agency recruiters. On the internal and corporate recruiter side, you really want to bring out your key successes, accomplishments in recent work history, technical skills that align with the job description, research that you've done, and just sort of your knowledge and excitement about the company and position that you've been with. Working with an agency recruiter, a little bit different. It's like us over here at Blue Wave. We're basically a resource and a partner for you for career development, professional development, able to present a number of opportunities that might just be a good fit for you, might be a good fit technically, personally, culturally, and kind of give you a high-level understanding of the job requirements, the organization, and sort of how your skill set matches up to that. Working with an agency recruiter, definitely good to be in a partnership type collaboration there. Be open about salary expectations, what you're looking for in terms of like an actual position, in terms of the skills and day-to-day that you'll be doing, the type of company you want to work with, and size and culture, and all those sort of nuances that can help develop that relationship and land you in a place that you're really going to be happy and thrive in. Generally, next step, you're actually going to go into a screening process with a technical manager, and this is where you really want to let your coding, development, and technical skills actually shine. There's going to be no BS here. It's much more detailed, much more in-depth, whether that's over the phone, in person, or through supplemental coding challenges and tests. Definitely be prepared to show off your technical skills as opposed to your personality or culture fit, while that still is pretty important. Different things to emphasize in different situations. These are the people that are really going to give you a good outlook on what the project is that you're working on, the type of team that you're going to be working on, and sort of what the day-to-day is like. So those are good things to be aware of, ask questions about, and tailor your conversation towards when you're talking to these types of managers. It's a really good thing to actually study, to be prepared for these type of coding challenges, technical questions. A lot of the times, managers are going to be testing you on the basics that maybe you haven't done before. I know a lot of people could probably say they could take an SAT right now, but without a couple weeks of study, like I would definitely be failing it right now. Haven't done it in a couple weeks. Study up. We got a couple different resources here for you guys. We'll send this out afterwards. Be prepared to do coding challenges, technical interview questions, both in person, online, and through little homework challenges. Generally, the last step of the interview process at an organization is talking to senior leadership. Big difference here. These people aren't really going to be qualifying you on day-to-day work. They're not going to be qualifying you on technical skills. They want to know what you're going to bring as a cultural impact to the company and how your professional goals align with the long-term growth of the organization. Definitely prepared to show off your personality, show how you're qualified to bring something and be a culture add to the company, and how you're going to help the company grow. And whatever organization you're in, whatever their goals are, you've probably scoped this out a little bit through initial conversations with those recruiters and technical managers and what you've done in your own due diligence. And definitely just need to shine, show your personality, and show your excitement about the position in this type of role. It's a good time to ask some questions about the long-term growth of the company, about where their expectations are in terms of culture, people they bring in, how many people they're going to be hiring, all sorts of things that's good for you as a candidate or interviewer to just see and get expectations of when you want to come in to see if it's going to be an organization that's a great fit for you. So definitely a key part, can really kind of make and break an interview, even if you're successful on the other stages with managers, technical managers, HR, recruiters. These people have a lot of power, and it's good to kind of vibe and connect with them on more of a personal level. Yeah, quick presentation. Yeah, just a couple of things throughout the whole interview process. It's very important. Show your excitement, show your due diligence on the organization, the type of role. To each of these people, while still emphasizing those couple key traits, whether it's your technical skills, your personality, or just your knowledge on whatever the role entails day to day. Tailor those conversations to emphasize those certain nuances and personality traits with each of those people, and you'll present yourself as a really well-rounded candidate, someone that can be successful in the job and really be a successful attribute to like the company's long-term growth. Lots of cool resources to use along that whole process. Talk to recruiters, talk to us here at Blue Wave. We're a partner with ODevs to be career consultants and help you guys with interviewing, resumes, having conversations with hiring managers. We're all happy to do any of that at this point. Do those technology interview preps, get prepared, even if you feel like you have the basics down and everything is kind of in your brain. It's nice just to study and be prepared for those type of questions. Look at the company's online presence and actually network with others in the organization. You guys are all doing a great job out here at ODevs and here monthly. All the time is just a great start to any of that, and that's great. Yeah, that's about it. Cool. Any questions? No? Cool. Any questions? Any questions? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That been looking at like an excited face. You were like, yeah, you were like, oh, me first.
I might actually be sick.
So, search and everything. Anybody while Jenell? Yeah. And I'll let Jenell tell you about hers when she gets up here. Anybody else hired? Yeah?
TrueCar. Here, Mike. Nice. Okay. My employer, TrueCar, is looking for a few good React and/or Rails developers.
Yeah,
So come see Andrew if you're interested in work for TrueCar as a React developer. Anybody else? I saw somebody else. I'll come back to you since. Jenell, did you bring your computer?
I did. I'm looking for stickers. This is very important.
I'm looking for API around town. We're going to be looking for data science and Node.js in here. Very confusing. So if you do any of those things, if you do it for a couple of years, let's talk after this, after the rest of the talk.
So data science and Node.js. All right. Is there anybody else who is hiring right now? All right, cool. How many of you are looking for a job? All right, quite a few.
We got 3 right here that are looking for jobs.
Oh, okay. You all in the UCF boot camp? Cool.
And there's 2 over there as well.
2 over there as well. Okay. All right. Well, we got a couple here. One job here, although it's senior, I guess you can come out of UCF boot camp. But you know, there's always jobs posted up. If you're not in the Slack, we have a channel that's all about job listings. So definitely check that out because we have regular postings there. That's probably the best way. All right, are you set, Jenell?
Yeah, I did a dongle now. Oh my gosh, the world is falling
Oh wait,
apart.
the dongle's right here. Okay.
Oh, I didn't. Wow. Oh, well, all right.
It's USB-C, right?
Yeah.
You want this here? Or
Both. I know I'm having a struggle right now. No one judge me.
You can do it.
I hope so. Oh, it's not plugged in.
Yeah.
It's coming. Is it? Maybe not.
What's going on?
Didn't disconnect it. Hold on. Make sure. Did I saw it? Something happened. Oh wait, got it. Got it. We're good. Okay,
Wait.
so just gotta
Oh, cool.
just mirror.
No, exit.
What happened? Oh yeah, it should be. Yeah, there you go.
It's okay, talk amongst yourselves, meet a new friend.
Go back to playing music.
Drummer. Right? I want him.
Unless you wanna have to drag stuff across.
Give it a minute. It takes like. There you go.
All right.
Yay!
We did it! I'm sure. I mean, I should be, right? Oh, wait, no, I'm not. Everything is on fire.
Oh, sorry. Is this the link?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you this. That's fine. I'd rather be done.
Okay. Entire screen.
Try and crawl.
Can you share just the presentation?
Well, I need a whole. It worked without it.
I'm on the interwebs.
We good?
Did you end the other one?
No. Smart.
They start blocking it.
No, this is just regular Chrome, like out of the box Chrome, because I never use Chrome.
Is that the computer?
Alright.
So, RIP.
Yeah, I guess.
Alright, sorry.
We'll go through the, why are you using Chrome?
I know, never. I never use Chrome. This is the worst.
Alright.
Alrighty.
Good?
I think everything's fine now.
Okay, good.
Hello, hi, I'm Jenell. This is my first time speaking in a really long time, so don't hate me. Okay, so cool. If you have met more than 3 people today, raise your hands. Like really high. I'm really proud of you right now. Okay, cool. If you've met more than 4 people today, raise your hands. Staff. Who are you? What's your name? Yeah, you raised your hand.
I'm Scout.
Hi, Scout.
I'm Scout. Yeah.
Okay, how many people did you meet
Oh, I think I met like about 7.
today
Yeah.
in this room?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so can you name off at least 3?
Don't do that.
Cassandra. I met the Blue Wave crew.
Oh, cool.
And then I met TA.
Nifty.
And Sid. David. And friend. Carl. All in the same boot camp. And now I met you, Jenell.
That's true. You did.
What do you want to call that? 8.
That's a lot of people. I would say everyone give her a round of applause. 'Cause that's so your whole point for going to a meetup is meeting people, so meet more people. Okay. All right, awesome. Do you want some stickers later?
Yeah.
Awesome, I got you. Okay, so hello again. I am Jenell. This is the screen that says my name. I have roller skates, so that's for sure a picture of me. You can't prove it, that it's not. So, I'm Jenell. I'm a UX developer at Capco, and we are hiring. So, a UX developer, essentially what that means is that I make really loud noises at HTML and CSS, and a little bit some JavaScript, and it's pretty fun. And then Capco is a wonderful place that does really cool stuff. So essentially, we make stuff for like banks and like other people who throw money at us. So that's really fun. So if you want to make stuff for people who throw money at you and you don't want to be a stripper, Capco is definitely the way to do it. But we're hiring, not strippers, unfortunately. We're just hiring developers. So yeah, cool. So is anybody here a manager or a lead? Nifty. Okay, cool. So you over there. How did you become a? Yes. How did you become a lead?
I'm loud and never else quit.
I love it. Okay, so who else is a lead? Can I get hands? Hands. Somebody like do a dance if they want to talk. Like anybody? Nope. Nobody wants to talk. Okay, so I'm gonna point at you. All right. How did you become a lead?
I just I worked my butt off and did my best to mentor the people around me, and it sort of just pushed me into that position organically.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. What's your name?
Brian,
Brian, nice to meet you. I'm Jenell.
pleasure to meet you.
Yay! Okay, cool. So that's really, really awesome. So I became a lead because I went on vacation. And I got back and I was a lead. So that's how I got to be a lead. It's pretty wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Really hard work. So I went on vacation and I got back.
Where'd you go?
I went to Nicaragua.
Whoa.
I know! So I went to Nicaragua and I came back and everything was terrible and everything was on fire. The project was on fire. And they're like, hey, Jenell, you're a lead now. Okay, thanks. Awesome. So that's how that went out for me. So it was basically like, have you ever watched Clue? And there's that woman who's like, flames on the side of my face. That was that. So that was wonderful. Yeah, so it was a problem. I had a lot of issues with it. But yeah, so I ended up having to come back once I finally did, because I kind of had like, you know, like when you get back from a trip and you're like, you feel like, you know, poop. Yeah, I felt like poop. So yeah, I essentially, what I had to do was like, okay, cool, I'm a lead now. What does that mean? So I had to go and assess the situation. So what is it that we had to do for the project? So what did my team have to do? What did you know, my bosses have to do? What did the client have to do to deliver on this project, right? What does my team need from me? So that's really important too when you are becoming a lead, right? You need to like be able to deliver things, right? What do I have to do for the project? So not just for my team, but for the project itself. And what are my priorities, right? So what do we have to do for the project? So you guys doing great? I'm doing great. I'm really, really warm. Okay, cool. So what are the goals for the client? Essentially what that is like, what does the client actually want? When the ink dries on that paper, you really want to know like they have like those desires, those needs. You want to know those desires, those needs. You need to know what they want, right? What do they expect? What are they looking to gain at the end of this project, right? And what are the boss's goals? So that's also a really hard one, right? So what do they need? A lot of the times, like as a developer, like not a lead, you kind of get into like a rut where you're just like, I'm building, I'm doing it, I'm delivering, I'm awesome. And then when you become a lead, you're like, cool, bosses have problems too. Great, awesome, that's amazing. And what are the goals for the team? So what is the team trying to do, right? So every single person in that team like has something that they really, really want to do, right? Like whether that's like become a better developer or, you know, just like get through the project so they can leave to another company, like whatever that is, like you want to help the team do what they need to do individually, right? And then also get like the thing through the door. Okay, and then what are your goals, right? So like, are you trying to like be a better developer? Are you trying to continue leading? What is it exactly that you need? So for me, the priorities were going to be things that like had to do with the team, right? So my team's happiness was the utmost importance to me, right? So when they were pissed off, I was pissed off. When they were happy, I was happy, right? Like they're the most important part for me for the project, right? Because without them, things can't get done. So their like utmost like happiness and like pride for things was just incredible for me. So hands down, like if you have your own team, like your first priority is to care for them, period, point blank. Then after that, it's the project, right? Making sure it gets delivered, making sure that you hit your deadlines, making sure that you hit your goals. The next thing is to communicate. Talk with everybody as much as possible, right? So we want to make sure that we're talking to our bosses, right? You want to make sure that you're asking them, are they stressed out? Why they're stressed out? Because sometimes they're stressed out, right? Like legitimately, like this project could be killing them inside, and you need to communicate with them and ask them like, why? What is it that you can do to help? And what is it that you can do to, you know, maybe alleviate any of their stress? One of the things that, you know, I kind of found a little bit tough for me was making sure that I let them know when things are going amazing, but also when things are going absolutely horrible, right? Like when things are going absolutely horrible, you also need to tell your boss and be like, okay, here's your plan of action to actually fix it. So that was really important. Another thing is to communicate with them the way that they prefer to be communicated with. So not all bosses like to be communicated with the same way, right? So some bosses are gonna wanna like Slack. Some people like one-on-one interactions, and then other people want, you know, Microsoft Teams, which is weird. So I don't know why that is. You also need to make sure that you're talking to them as often as possible, right? Make sure that you are communicating to the point where it's like kind of annoying, right? And then talk to your team. Make sure they're all right? Like check up on them. So I was kind of blessed in the fact that I had a pretty dope team. Most of my team is actually here. Fun fact, they're amazing. And they all had like different personality types. So like there's like the superstar, right? Who really like needs to be like heads down and like needs to like code and like do work, and he's fantastic all by himself. But like honestly, like he also needs like, you know, sometimes to talk to somebody, or maybe just to be like, hey, kind of leave me alone for a little bit. That's great. Okay, thanks, bye.
I feel seen.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of your superstar. So there's also like people who want you to rubber duck with them, right? So you're gonna want kind of let them talk to you or talk at you so that they can solve problems, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what you want, right? You want them to make sure that they can solve their problems all on their own or with your help. So yeah, the really cool thing about my team as well is that like all of their strengths were some of my weaknesses, right? So if, you know, I was really, really bad at Angular, right? Which I am. There's always someone on the team that can be like, hey, Jenell, like, let me help, right? That's really, really awesome that somebody could just step in, right? And wherever I was strong, I could help them out. So we completely balanced each other out. So you always want to make sure that you can help your team do their best work. And make sure that you're communicating with the rest of your team as well. So another huge thing that I found with leadership is that other leaders on our team, not just the front end team, but like the back end team, the mobile team, even like, you know, our bosses, like they all had something to offer, right? So like one of the really great, like one of my favorite leads at our company leads with humor, right? So like his whole thing is like, I joke, I laugh with you, and then you learn something, right? And it's so wonderful to see that. It's amazing. And then others lead by like, hey, these are the best practices, this is how we do things, and that's really, really cool to see too. You also want to make sure that you're talking to them as often as possible, right? So that's really, really important. At the end of the day, like this quote means a lot, right? You want to make sure that your team is completely cared for and loved on. Like they mean so, so much. And you know, if you're not like putting your all into your team, really you're not going to get the best result, right? Another really, really hard thing about leadership is standing up for yourself. That was super, super hard for me because I can't usually. I'm just like, I'm gonna not do that, right? So I ended up having to, I pushed back a lot, like probably way too much, like so much. So I pushed back on everything. I said no to all the things. Do you want that nav bar? No, you can't have it. Do you want this drop-down menu? Absolutely not. Would you like that color red? Nope, it's gonna be pink. Deal with it. So like, that was kind of not a great thing for me. So personally, this is something that I have to learn how to do better. There is a right and a wrong time to push back, right? So like, there are things that like, if the client wants like fairies on their screen, like, unless they're like Lisa Frank, you're gonna be like, no fairies for you, girl. So definitely make sure that like you're pushing back on things like that, right? Practice saying no. Like, tell your friends no. Like if you know, are supposed to go to a bar, and you really don't like that bar, you just don't go to that bar, right? Just be like, nah, I'm not going, right? Like, tell your dog no. Like, okay, don't tell your dog no because dogs are amazing. But maybe tell your cat no, right? Because cats are kind of terrible. So, this is just, yeah, super, super hard if you're not kind of keen on saying no. And also you're gonna fail, right? You're gonna suck at everything, especially your first time. So for me, my first time saying no was kind of hard, but every time after was like, I'm gonna say no to everything. And that's okay, right? Like, that's where I learned. And it's okay to fail. You're gonna miss a deadline, that's fine, it happens, right? Like, you're still gonna have a job, and if you don't, like you're a dev, you'll find a job, you're okay, right? You might get too much work, or push back too much, or you're gonna like piss people off genuinely, like you're gonna make people angry, and that's totally fine. Like, move on with your life. You're gonna make a mistake, apologize, and keep it going, right? But all in all, just want to make sure that you guys understand, like, if you do want to be in a position of leadership, love your team, love what you do, and be proud of your work, because that's like the most important. Thank you so much.
Anybody got any questions for Jenell? Are you up for questions?
Oh, I mean, we're hiring. Do you have any questions now?
Any questions?
No.
That was great stuff.
Yay!
Thank you.
I have stickers up here.
And Jenell has stickers.
Yeah. They're up there.
All right, so next up we got Andrew. Jenell, I agree with a lot. That advice was great advice. I had, so up until recently I was leading a team, and I kind of learned to, like you said, about making them happy. I felt like I was trying to be relieve them from having to deal with all the pain of messaging up and dealing with like meetings with management and all this thing, those kind of things. It's like as much as I could free them up to do work, that was the goal, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. For sure. Like, meetings are something that are just like kind of annoying to go to, but you're like, man, if I go to these 7 meetings,
yeah, they don't have to
my
go to
team
those
can
meetings.
actually build features. How is that? That's pretty cool.
It's an entire screen, right?
All right, getting screen share.
Are you plugged in? Not yet. Okay, screen share.
It is one.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
It's definitely.
it's right there. They don't give me access to it, unfortunately.
You don't get it?
The,
No?
the AC.
You have to be like a VP to get access to the...
Apparently you need to have a key. They won't give me that key.
What? You have an HDMI right there, right? You should just do straight to the HDMI.
Actually click on it. Let me share the screen, actually click it. You're not sharing it yet.
Oh, it's not sharing yet?
I understand why it's...
And then, yeah, so select it, there it is. Oh, bam, all right, we're good, thank you.
All right, we got it.
We have the color change.
Oh, you know what? It might be, I think, that flux or something. Give me 1 second.
That's fine.
Better. You still good on sharing?
Yes.
All right, cool.
You can take it out if you want.
Okay, cool. It's all good. I'll do it right here. Hello, everybody. So my name's Andrew. I've done a couple things in the area. Sitting on the board with ODevs right now. Ran Code for Travel with my partner Aaron for a while. If anybody here has not been to Code for Orlando meetup, please go. It's like first Tuesday of the month, every month. It's a lot of fun. That's the only plug I'm going to do right now. Besides my plug for our new app, Recipe Box. So we're going to go over a few things today about Recipe Box. We'll kind of talk about what it is. We'll do some brief numbers. It's an iOS app that my partner Tom and I launched down here. We'll talk about some of the lessons that we learned when we were launching it. Depending on time, I'll try to talk about some of the problems we faced when we were trying to parse recipes, and we'll do a quick Q&A. So in May of 2018, my wife deployed this wonderful little baby to production. She's amazing, she's fantastic. Light of my life right there. 6 months later, Tom and I over here deployed this beautiful baby to production as well. So November 2018, Recipe Box version 1.0 launched. We were super, super excited about it, something we worked on for a little while. So Recipe Box is it's like a mobile application that allows you to save your favorite recipes that you find online. So if you go to like budgetbytes.com or all recipes, anybody here cook at all? All right, cool. Yeah, we got some people here that cook. So you find a recipe online, and instead of writing it down or printing it or doing whatever, you can save it into a mobile app. We also let you create your own recipes. So if you got like some family classics that you like, you can put those in. And then we also have you can search by ingredients. So if you're like, hey, I've got some onions, I don't know what to cook, you can type in onions, you can find things and cook, so you're not wasting food. And then down the line, we're going to be adding like meal planning, grocery lists, and then some budgetary things, so you can figure out how much you're spending on your budget each month on your grocery bill, and help you find ways that you can reduce that. We built this because it was kind of, there are a lot of apps out there that do this. I think like Paprika's one of them, Copy Me That, Recipe Keeper, I can name them all off. But none of them really felt right for us, and none of them felt like they were built to be used in your kitchen. So you save all these recipes, you're good to go, but then you go and get in your kitchen, and then you're like fumbling around, trying to split between, like, trying to figure out where the instructions are. You know, your phone's turning off, you're covered in like flour and goop, and you're like trying to turn your phone back on, and it just wasn't really a great experience. So we wanted an app that kind of felt more natural in the kitchen. And then I needed a way to keep my brain from like turning into mush, because babies are fantastic, but they're a lot of work, and you don't get a lot of sleep, and sometimes your days can kind of blend in together. So it was a good way for me to help keep me healthy, while we were building this. The tech stack, so it's built on Swift 5.1 on the iOS side, and then I handle all the back-end stuff. So it's Mongo, Express, and Node. There's a little bit of Vue in there as well, but most of it, I feel like I'm so old. I was like, this is for mostly HTML and CSS. No fancy frameworks involved, but the site loads fast. We're hosting on Heroku. That was a decision we made, so we didn't want to spend our time, ramping up AWS services, and I didn't want to be a sysadmin, right? I wanted to build my app and get the thing up. So we went with Heroku, so it's a little bit more expensive than what we might have been able to pay, but it was great. We use an app called Papertrail for logging. It's fantastic. For those of you who are kind of new to development, do some reading on how to, write good logs. It's incredibly helpful for just when you're trying to hunt down why something is or more likely isn't working. And then Postmarks we use for transactional emails. So these are things where like you do a sign up, you get an email, we use that, and then we use Firebase for analytics. So we're coming up on 1 year on RecipeBox. And in that almost 1 year, actually we're just about to cross 89,000 recipes. We expect to cross 100,000 recipes by Thanksgiving that have been saved to our system, which is going to be like a massive milestone for us. We average about 6,100 users a month. We average about 600 a day, but on the weekends we tend to go up. So like yesterday, I think we had 972, I think is what we said, which is pretty cool, because you're like, you wake up in the morning, check your stats from yesterday, you're like, wow, almost 1,000 people use this thing, and it started out in my brain, and now it's here. That's pretty neat. And we've got about 26% week one retention. So anybody not know what retention rates are? So that means that 26% of the users who download the app and open it one time came back and used it again in 1 week. And so that helps you measure the stickiness of your app and whether or not people are using this. So if you're building an app and that number is really low, it means people are launching it, they're leaving, they're never coming back, you're never going to be able to make any money off those people. And then right now we're ranking number 11 in the App Store for the search term recipes, which is really cool because we rank right above Pinterest. So take that, Pinterest. And then we're right behind this app called Healthy Crockpot Recipes, and I do not like those people at all because I want that number 10 spot. These are quick ones. These are just what our analytics look like in Firebase. So 6,100, 2,800 a week. And then the day I took that was 721 people in a day. And this is our long-term user retention on the app. So by week 5, we still have about 14% of people coming back and using the app after they launched it the first time. If anybody here has any number or any can give me guidance on like what kind of retention rate we should be targeting for an app, honestly, it's something I'm trying to learn. So if you've got experience with something like this, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. So in August, we were featured in the App Store underneath the apps we love, which is great because I don't know if everybody's here are like iOS developers, but Apple's not like the best development partner. So they're not always like clear about what they're doing. So we got featured in the App Store and we never heard anything about it. Tom actually got an email from some guy trying to sell him something that said, hey, congrats on being featured. And we're like, what? So we launched up the App Store and sure enough, we're there. And in that 8-day period, we got almost 5,000 downloads, which was fantastic. The problem is that those users weren't actually sticky. And so we learned something about users in the App Store when you're building an app in somebody else's ecosystem is that you might get high downloads by getting marketed by them, but they're not always going to be like your best target users. And so I think what this was were people who are coming through, they're grabbing the app, they're downloading it, they're like, okay, this is cool, and they're moving on to the next new thing, right? So the feature was nice, but it wasn't as like life-changing as maybe we had thought. We're hoping down the line we'll be able to be featured in some more prominent areas. But there was a nice bump to our average user count. So that little hump right there is the time period that we were featured. And then you can see that after the feature was complete, we were still at about double the users that we had before. And then as of, I think last night, we were finally back up to where we were when the app was featured. So for long-term growth, it was pretty great, but we just saw a lot of turnover or a lot of churn for those. So didn't have a lot of time, got a newborn, right? And so how do we do this? Or I guess I had a little bit less time than you did on your hands, right? So if you want to launch your own app, is anybody here started like a side project on your own? Yeah, everybody's done that? Pretty much everybody's done that? A lot of people here have not launched that side project, or it's like dead in the GitHub repo somewhere, right? So what we're going to go over here is some tips for how maybe you can help get that thing out to production. So for me, it was important to find the right partner. I know if I'm working by myself, I'm not going to stick with something. This app started because I was like, I just want to learn how to write a parser, but I didn't really know if we were going to build anything about it or with it. Tom came along, he's like, hey, I'll build the app. I was like, all right, well, I guess we're doing this thing. So he built the app out. But he and I have complementary skill sets and interests, so I wasn't really interested in doing iOS development anymore, but he was. I wanted to do some server stuff. He had no interest in that at the time, or little interest. So our skill sets, instead of like competing with each other, or working the same thing together, they were complementary. We were able to help each other out. We're also able to hold each other accountable and keep ourselves motivated, especially when you're lacking of sleep and you've woken up for the 5th time to change the diaper and you're tired, and it's good to have somebody who can like help keep you motivated. And just as important, somebody to celebrate the wins with. 'Cause it's cool when you're building something by yourself and you're like, hey, cool, we crossed this milestone, and nobody cares because it's just you. So it's nice having a partner to kind of celebrate those things. So we actually started getting together after every 10,000 recipes that get saved. And then we put that, we're like, all right, cool, we'll do this like every month. And now it's like, we now get together every week. We gotta like compare this thing back a little bit. The thing I love most about Tom is I can trust him and we can get work done together. He's just as motivated to get this thing done as I am. So it's really important to make sure that you're not like dragging somebody along with you on that journey. We're both kind of working together and we're both getting stuff done. So I think the top thing that we did though that really helped us get this thing out is defining a clear MVP. So people hear about this, right? So it's like a minimum viable product, right? So it's supposed to be like, what's the bare basics thing that you can get out to production without having, just get it out so people can start using it. And a lot of times people will be like, all right, we're gonna build an MVP, and we're also gonna add this, and we're gonna add this, and we're gonna add this, and next thing you know, your MVP is not so M anymore. So what we do is we make sure we were like aggressively cutting out anything that didn't matter. So it didn't have to do with saving a recipe or viewing a recipe, it did not go into the app. So we got that thing out in the market, we started listening to feedback from people, and then we found out, okay, cool, these are the features that people want us to actually build. And so we started building out the features that people were actually asking for instead of guessing what they wanted. And we would just iterate, and we would focus on that MVP. So when we launched, our MVP was just user registration and authentication, CRUD on your recipes, you can parse recipes, you can view recipes, and we had an iOS share extension. It was important to us to make sure that we're gonna have an app, we wanna try to make it feel as native as possible. So you can be right in Safari, you can you like share a link or something like that, you'll have a little recipe box icon right there and you just tap it. You don't even have to launch the app. That was really important to us because we wanted to have that really, really smooth user experience. Things that we punted was a lot. So recipe discovery, so you couldn't search for recipes, you couldn't even search your own recipes, so if you saved 400 recipes to your account, good luck finding the recipe you saved. Recipe organization, we didn't allow you to add like your own categories or anything, so if you had 400 recipes, good luck finding which one was that delicious Italian dinner that you cooked. Photo uploads, that was something we had a lot of people asking us for, but we didn't put it in the first version. I was actually really surprised by how many people just want to upload a photo of food they've taken. There's no social features in the app. And so they'll cook these dishes and then just replace the recipe image with the one that they cook. It's kind of nice because I feel like it helps them build an emotional connection to the app and makes them more likely to come back and keep on using it. And then grocery list is a big thing that we punted. That is a very hard problem to solve, and that was not a problem for MVP, Andrew. It's a problem for version 3.0, Andrew. So as you're working, the other thing that's really important for us, or at least for me, was to stay organized. Probably a big disclaimer here. One of these items on here, well, I'd say, we wrote a PRD. So our PRD was super basics, product requirements document. There's a wonderful article out there about the importance of a product requirements document, and it's got a link, very small, as like a caption underneath an image of an example of PRD for the app product hunt. I don't know if anybody's seen product hunt before. We used that as like our basis for our PRD. And what the PRD did was it allowed us to flesh out what we're going to build before we build it. Because we go, okay, cool, we're going to build, parsing a recipe. But by documenting it in a requirements document, you start to understand exactly what parsing the recipe means, right? So like, are you parsing nutritional data? Are you parsing, what are you doing with images? Where are you going to host those images? There's a lot that you start figuring out as you start writing that PRD. I feel like that was a really helpful thing, at least for me when we were trying to go through and get this thing built out. We also built out some wireframes. We didn't necessarily wireframe everything, but we at least got a rough idea of like, we want this button to go here, we think things to be placed here. It saved us a lot of time in coding, because again, not have a lot of time, you got a baby, you got to do things quick. And so when we do it, we want to make sure it's right, or it's close to right the first time that we do it. And then I'm diligent about tracking tickets. Jenell was asking about who's manager. I'm a manager, and I'm like, you don't have a ticket, you're not working on anything, right? So I track my tickets. Tom is more of a free-spirited individual and does not track his tickets as closely as I am. Complimentary, right? So for me, I just use GitHub issues, right? You don't have to do a whole Jira thing. I'm sure everybody in this room loves Jira, right? You don't have to go through all that. I just use GitHub issues. I very quickly write down, here's the thing I need to get done, and that's what we do. It's good enough for me. Another thing to do is to make sure you're solving the right problems. And the right problems aren't always the most interesting ones, which is kind of what is tough. Because you go into a side project and you're like, here's this very specific technical problem that I think would be interesting to solve. And so you solve it, and then you're like, I don't really want to do everything else that's around the rest of the stuff, and you just move on to the next project. So for us, we just focused on completing our core functionality, and that was that MVP. And then we focused on polishing later. So we weren't worried about getting the UI design correct before, like, we got it correct before we launched, but while we were building out, it wasn't something that was a focus for us. But we did want to make sure we had something that was in our hands as soon as possible, so we could play with it and see how it feels, and then make changes, according to that. And then I put down spread out the fun here. What that means is basically look at your project and be like, this would be interesting, this would be interesting, this would be interesting. But writing a registration system is not interesting. But what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna work on this interesting problem over here until this uninteresting thing is done. And that allows you to at least put milestones for yourself so you can accomplish the goals. Because again, if you do all the interesting things up front, you're gonna just be like, why am I can do other problems I could be solving, why would I even work on this anymore? So this is an example of what version 0.2 of the app, 0.3 of the app looked like. And this is good enough for us, got some lists, no images, when you're in a recipe list. The recipe details a little funky, we got some truncation going on, we got some tiny images. And by the time we launched, the bar came later, but this is what we kind of ended up with. We're still working on tweaking it, and we tend to do minor design changes every once in a while. I just try to improve things. Something else that's really important is make sure you schedule your time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same time together to work with a partner, but make sure you're saying, I'm trying to consistently work on this thing at the same time every day. Sorry, I'm getting some water. I came prepared. So schedule your time and make sure you're trying to, wow, sorry. I know it's gonna happen, so I brought the water. I'll be a terrible teacher, I'll tell you what. So schedule time for yourself to work on the project consistently. It doesn't have to be the same time as your partner. Tom is a nan, I believe is what you called yourself. He's grandpa, a nan. So he's in sleep by 10 p.m. and I'm starting work at 10 p.m. The key is to make sure that you're just being consistent. And if you miss a day, it's okay, don't kill yourself. Just try to be consistent on it. And take the breaks when you need them. That's really important. You want to be refreshed and ready to work on your thing. Kind of good on time. You guys mind if I talk about like some of the parsing stuff real quick? All right, cool. So recipe parsing is hard. There are some known formats out there to use. So if you're looking at trying to do a parsing project, take a look and see what is it that you're trying to parse and find out there's some templates you can use. The way our parser works, the first thing I look for is JSON linked data. That's like a defined structure for recipes. So if I see that, awesome, your recipe is going to parse perfectly. If I don't see that, then I look for schema.org. They've got a ton of like just standardized data structures. One of them is recipes. But what's interesting is that not everything is a recipe. Some things are how-to lists. And so you have to kind of look through their schemas and say, okay, cool, it's a recipe. Cool, parse it this way. If it's a how-to list, parse it this way. If that doesn't work, you can look at, for us, there are common blog plugins, and so we look for the structures that are kind of put out by that, and then we'll parse those specifically. So like WP Recipe Maker is one of those. And if all else fails, we'll fall down to the Open Graph. At the very least, we can grab the title and the URL, and we'll just save that. So if we can't parse your recipe, you can still save it. Just when you go, you won't have that pretty detailed view. It'll just load you up on the website. And if none of those work, you have to work through those edge cases. And that is where the terribleness starts. And those are the parts of the code that I do not want to be public ever. And you start looking through, finding out where are all the commonalities, right? So some people might have recipes, and the ingredient list might have a class name for CSS that says like ingredient, and it might be in a parent div that says like ingredient list. And you might see that pattern on a few sites, and so you try to like code around that. Yeah, it's tough. Parsing HTML is a hard thing to do. And just as hard as parsing recipes themselves and getting like all the components, or parsing out the individual ingredients, this has turned into a much bigger problem than I naively thought when I first started. It's not, right now I'm not happy with where we're at on this right now. It's actually what's kept us from launching some of the other features we want, because we want to be able to reliably say what your ingredient is and what the thing is when you're trying to build out like your grocery list. So most recipes come out, they say like, here's quantity, a unit, and an ingredient. So it'd be like, 1/4 cup of sugar, 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. And so what we'll do is we'll look for those patterns, and we'll take a string, so the string is 1/4 cup of sugar, and we'll break it out into something like 1/4 is quantity, a cup is the unit, and then sugar is the ingredient. But the problem is that people are unpredictable. And so these are some of the ingredients that we get, and that even some of these we haven't really successfully parsed yet. So you might have half with the fraction symbol, tablespoon white sesame seeds, parentheses, roasted / toasted, parentheses, for topping, close parentheses, right? So you look at that and you're like, what do we even do with this thing, right? And so you start doing some weird string manipulation, and you're looking for things inside parentheses. The first version of this, we assumed that everything within a parenthesis was a prep note, like roasted and toasted. But for topping would also be a prep note, not really a prep note. There's a popular website called budgetbytes.com. They put their prices in the parentheses. So instead of getting like chopped as your prep note, you would get $0.05 because that parsley cost you 5 cents. Not a prep note. Yeah. And so as you start working on your parsing, you'll start seeing those kind of edge cases, and you'll start kind of figuring out what you need to do to successfully parse a larger amount of ingredients. And so what I do now is like I'll take, we've got 500, 600,000 ingredients in our database. I'll take like a subset of those. I'll build out some unit tests around them to say, hey, here's what I expect to be parsed. And then I'll run my test, run it through my component parser, and I look at my test results, and then just code that way. So working so far, I think when I first wrote it, we think we had 50% of the components parsed correctly. I think we're at like 70 or 80% right now. So we're getting there. Once we hit 90%, I'll feel solid about it. Another one, weird one would be like 1 cup of firmly packed, fresh, flat leaf parsley, trimmed of thick stems. And so in this case, you have firmly packed as a prep note, and trimmed of thick stems is also a prep note. And so sometimes there are multiple things that you have to do on an ingredient, right? So how do you look for those? If you know, please tell me. And then we've got 1 pound boneless pork loin, trimmed hanger steak, boneless short rib, or skinless boneless chicken breast or thighs, which is quantity, unit, ingredient, ingredient. Good luck with that one. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting as we're parsing is understanding that words have context, right? This is probably one of the more interesting problems we ran into. So I have 2 ingredients. I have half a cup of frozen corn, thawed, and I have 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, frozen. And so for these ingredients, the first one, the ingredient is frozen corn, but on the second one, the prep note is frozen. So you can't even say like, well, if I find the word frozen, it's prep note, because frozen corn is different than fresh corn, it's not the same, right? And so when you're building your parser, you have to start taking those things into consideration and thinking about your context and what the string that you're trying to parse. Oh, the other thing that's interesting is like unsalted butter is different than salted butter. So when you look at that, you can't just say butter. But some recipes do just have butter, and so you have to make sure when you're parsing your components that you try to differentiate types of ingredients or types of components when you can. So the key thing is just do what you need to do, but get the MVP out the door. Get it to your users, find out what they're using, how they use it. I spent a lot of time on our parser, thinking that like people were going to complain if the ingredients didn't parse correctly and it loaded up a website. 0 complaints. Nobody's complained about it. People complain about not being able to do meal planning or do their grocery lists. But the thing that I thought was most important before we launched was getting the parser done, and it turns out nobody cares about that. And so it's a true testament to making sure that you get something out the door so you can solicit that feedback and then just iterate on top of that. That's it. Q&A from there. Questions? Yes.
When are you going to build this?
Yeah, we've got that going right now. So I don't know if John Lee, but he's working on that for us. Yeah. We have Android. Because it was only MVP, but you can do it. I think something you had something, right?
Well, I was going to ask for it was.
Oh man, see, 2 in a row. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
What influenced the decision to go native iOS as opposed to something cross-platform right off the top?
Oh, Tom cries whenever you talk about doing React Native. That's why. No, yeah, that came down to skill sets. I was open, so I actually was not a Node developer or anything. I still don't consider myself to be a Node developer, even though I built this thing in Node. For Tom, it was just we knew we could get to market quicker if you just did a native app. We knew that if it was successful, we'd pull somebody in and do an Android version already. We had John Lee lined up, so we knew that we could pull him in when we needed to. The key thing was just for us to get to market as quickly as possible, and that's going to happen with iOS over Android. Yeah, but it had nothing to do with like iOS is better than Android or anything like that. It was just that's where the knowledge was. Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, I think we could expect more Android users than iOS at the end of the day.
Yeah, so, if you can hear that, Tom said we're kind of expecting more Android users than iOS at the end of the day. The apps on Android aren't that great, and so at least for recipe storage, ones we've toyed with. So hopefully we can kind of dig in there and triple or quadruple our numbers.
Did you raise money or did you bootstrap it? And do you have any revenue currently?
Yep. So the question was, do we bootstrap it? Do we get investment, and is there any revenue right now? So no, we did not take on no investment. It's been completely bootstrapped. Our costs right now are super low. So I think I pay $75 a month for hosting. That's hosting. That's Paper Trail. That's our database. And I think I've got New Relic. I'm paying for New Relic right now for server monitoring. We're ready just because it's been a year putting in. I figured we'll put a couple grand into it and see what happens. We haven't gotten nowhere near that point yet. Revenue we're hoping is going to come once we put it together, meal planning and grocery lists. So what's interesting for us is that we actually have people who message us like 6 months after downloading the app. They're like, hey, I'm still using this, I love this thing. And so we're hoping that those kind of like, I hate using the word power users because that's kind of like cliche, but those kind of like people who love the app, I hope they're going to love it enough that they'll help kind of support us. I don't really think the end goal here is to like, walk out billionaires or anything. Well, if somebody has $1 billion and they want to buy a recipe box, please, you'll see me after this. But yeah, hopefully we can at least get his mortgage covered. It's kind of the end goal. Did I answer I think I answered it right.
You described the process that you went through to build your parser. Did you do any market research with actual chefs to figure out how they might approach that process? A baker is going to be different than a guy that does barbecue.
Yeah, so no, not for the parser. we're really targeting home cooks, and what we found from talking to people is that trained chefs tend to cook a little differently than home cooks might. They also tend not to use recipes as much. They tend to just know their ingredients and know what they can make because they're trained, so they don't rely on that as much as opposed to somebody who's throw together a dinner for a family of 5, on a Wednesday or something like that. But regarding the parser, there's actually a fantastic article out there about, I can't remember if they were using IBM Watson. I think they were using IBM Watson to try to parse recipes. They're putting in like source from the New York Times. There's a really, really long article written by somebody much smarter than me who did a much better job solving this problem than I did. So if you're interested in kind of the intricacies of recipe parsing, it's a great article. Even if, just to understand kind of how he wrote this parser, it's fantastic. It kind of goes over like some like natural language processing and some of the challenges that he faced. So just Google like IBM Watson recipe parse and you'll find the article. Lots of questions.
How did you say you were going to monetize it? Are you going to do advertisement or?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it'll be we're still looking at subscription services. Yeah, and so everybody's moving to that model, or a lot of people are moving to that model. That's what we're going to try to kind of start with and see how it goes. We think there's some value there because it is something people use regularly. It doesn't really feel like it's like a money grab. We're also pretty upfront about it, saying, hey, this is 2 guys who work on this thing. We want to continue working on it, but at the end of the day, like we've got to be able to make sure it's at least bring something in so we can cover the costs and everything. But yeah, we're looking at a subscription model. And if that doesn't work, we'll find something else. Yeah. So if anybody has experience implementing something like that and has seen did your users revolt, I don't know, I'd like to hear about that, so come talk to me.
I was curious, how do you approach design? Because one of the things that happens with side projects for me is I'm like, okay, I can build this and I can do that. And now it's time to put the thing together, and it's like, well, I suck at design. And
Yeah,
but,
I've got a cheat code for you. So the question is, how do you handle design, especially if you're not a designer? So you go to Google, you just type in like UI kits. And the premium ones will be better. And so what this is a lot of designers who are trying to pull in work will build UI kits, and they're just different components that you can piece together to build something out. What you're doing with the MVP is you're trying to get it out the door. So you don't necessarily need something that's like the most slickly designed thing in the world. It was good enough for us. And so our website is actually based off of a UI kit called Now UI. So if you go on Google Now UI, you go, wow, it looks a lot like Recipe Box. They ripped those guys off. Like, no, we ripped them off, and we're okay with it. And so I think it's Creative Tim is the company, or it's the guy who does them. He's got a few of them. They're fantastic. It was a super easy way for us to get something up and running. We took that UI kit and then kind of put together sketch templates with like symbols and everything that kind of fell in line with that same UI kit, and that's what we built the iOS app about. So if you go to the website or download the app, everything's pretty consistent. Yeah, but use UI kits when you can. I mean, use a designer. Using a designer is like the best route to go. It's just, they just cost money.
We also use Erin Denton a little bit.
Yeah, Erin Denton. Yeah, I should have. Man, this is terrible. Her husband works here too. That's terrible of me. Erin Denton is fantastic. Her and her husband are on a trip around the world right now. I think, or maybe it's just Europe. I don't know. And so they're fantastic. So Erin's a designer. She works for Skill Crush. She's helped us out a lot. We really bounced a lot of UX ideas off of her, and she gave us some great insight. So when she gets back, should definitely talk to her about that sort of thing. Thank you for keeping me honest there.
Oh, you had one more question, I think?
All right, your parser sounds like the most fun problem. How do you approach it? It almost sounded like you were talking, like you were doing static tech parsing. I was wondering, did you go machine learning route?
No, yeah, So I went static text. It's not the best parser in the world, and I'm sure there's people in here who do a much better job at it than I did. Machine learning is that's kind of what I wanted to run down that route. I've kind of toyed with like Dialogflow for doing like trainings, like when you're doing like chatbots and that sort of thing. So looking at trying to possibly use a tool like that. It came down to really the same reason why we use native iOS over like React.js, is that my goal wasn't to learn how to solve a problem with machine learning. The goal was to get something out the door. And so ideally, yeah, I think trying to find like a machine learning approach would be great, but I would really be starting at like ground zero. What is a variable, right? they'll use that equivalent to machine learning. Anything else? Good? Cool. All right. Thank you all for the questions.
All right. Well, that's it for tonight. There's still some pizza, I think, and cookies and brownies and chips. Please take, because I don't want to take it home. Again, next meetup, November 4th. Look for that being announced soon, and I hope to see you there. Thanks.
Let's get you some stickers. Love your fucking team.
Thanks, man.
Huh? Love your team.